channeling Johnny Cash or something.
We tried to get a hold of Bill, but he didn't listen. I said, I forgot my collar.
There you go.
The black.
All right, looks like it just turned 4 o'clock. Witching hour. I guess I'd like to call today's April 23 BPW meeting to order. Start with the invocation. Lord, we gather here today to serve your will. We ask that you give us strength to be upbeat in times of hardship, and you allow us to keep our purpose in mind at all times. Thank you for these dedicated people who give their gifted talents to help achieve a common goal in serving our community. In your name, we pray for positive outcome to our long-term needs and your continued protection from dangers in their provision of services. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And starting off, we look for comments from the audience. Anybody want to?
I have one.
Yeah, why don't you go
I
ahead?
don't necessarily want to run the line.
There's no line yet.
Pardon my call.
Push your thing to green up there. And
Now, wait a minute.
Now, wait,
There you go.
turn green. All right, excellent.
We had the election, and now we're back all on the same team. Because the challenge and the problem remains. And so now, I guess, begins the quest for what we can do about it. And I have some thoughts that I wanted to share with you, and I've reduced them to some notes because I didn't want to talk too long. First suggestion I've got to make is, as we look at this problem, I think the Board of Public Works ought to have a discussion with the members of the City Council about this business that they came up with, in 2017, where part of the problem is addressed by the council and part of the problem is addressed by the Board of Public Works. I think if there was foresight, people would know that's not a good idea. It's a situation where you've got double bureaucracy and double effort and the likelihood of problems one with the other. And so wherever it goes, it ought to be one entity in charge of stormwater. And I honestly don't think it should be the Board of Public Works because stormwater doesn't generate any revenue. And there's something about paying taxes managed by an appointed board that is different from taxes appointed by an elected board or an elected commission. So that's one thing I would ask you to consider. The second thing I think that you ought to do is take the black and veatch material and put it deep into storage, way back behind the Ark of the Covenant, to where somebody may want to look at it again, but it's not necessary. If we never see it again, I don't think we would be at a loss. The next question that I think should be considered is whether or not we need another tax. We may not need another tax, and this is why I say that. 2 years ago this month, the citizens of Hannibal approved an infrastructure tax. And you can't think of anything more infrastructure than drainage. Well, maybe streets, but nonetheless, that is infrastructure. And I think there were a number of people, if not a whole lot of people, that thought by approving a sales tax for infrastructure to bring in $1.82 million a year, that the problems would be addressed. Unfortunately, I see or have heard that the city manager wants to use the infrastructure tax that we now have adopted, that they've spent very little of. There's a balance of about 2 million, 2.2, 2.4 million in that fund right now. But her position is that that tax is needed to tear down the old St. Elizabeth Hospital. I think that's a breach of faith with the voters of Hannibal, because the hospital is not infrastructure, and it sure as heck didn't start out as our infrastructure. But those discussions should be had. And so what my recommendation is start over. If you're going to do something, Mr. Gordon, if you're going to do something, what I would suggest is find and figure the top 5 to 10 projects that need immediate attention. I saw the presentation. They're there. Everybody knows it. And get that list. I think starting is a very important thing to do. However you do that. And when you do that, remember, all of the underground storm sewer system in Hannibal has already been engineered. Not only has it been engineered, it's been constructed. The problem we have is that age and the movement of the earth and rain and water and freezing and thawing has caused it over the years to degrade, and now it needs heavy maintenance in some places. In many places, it needs replacement. But we know what's there. The first thing to do is, if we just put it back the way it was originally, would that do? And I think in probably 8 out of 10, if not 9 out of 10 cases, you'd find that would be true. So my suggestion is that you have another meeting like we did some time ago, where the City Council and the Board of Public Works met together to discuss this situation, to discuss how to address it. We know a lot more now than we did then, and find out what is the most appropriate path forward. And when you have that meeting, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend public participation be permitted. There's a lot of people out there that have information, perhaps opinions, no doubt, as to how the city ought to proceed, whether it's the proceeding of the Board of Public Works or the proceeding of the city, or the proceeding of a department that maybe they create to worry about stormwater. I could talk for a long time about Hannibal history and stormwater, but that may be for another day. I think that if you clean the plate and start over, that progress can be made, and I would certainly like to lend whatever contribution I might make to that. Thank you all.
Hey, John, a couple questions.
Yes.
Your premise for not wanting to address Black and Veatch's recommendation means that, to me, you inherently don't believe that there is a requirement for $3 million a year.
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. We went along for a century, or at least 80 years. When there was a problem with the stormwater system, the street department fixed it. I'm an eyewitness. As a matter of fact, for 4 years, some of that stuff bubbled up to my desk and some of it didn't. But we had a robust street department, and they looked after streets, and the stormwater, wherever the water on the street was going to go, was a responsibility of the street department. We don't have the street department we used to have now. But that's the historical perspective.
So if all the stormwater situations can be paid for by the sales tax, which did include infrastructure, and I do happen to believe that tearing down of St. E's is not infrastructure, but there seems to be almost an order of magnitude difference between what the people who do this as analysts for a living through this pretty good sized international company believe that the major things that need to be taken care of underground probably can't be done by either BPW employees or street department employees, and it's going to take a lot more money. So you disagree that it's going to take $3 million and the 0.5% sales tax increase is enough, then I think that might be the huge difference between what we all have been led to believe what it will cost and what you believe it'll cost.
John, my experience years ago as a lawyer taught me that to get paid, an expert will say any damn thing you want that expert to say. And I think, as I looked at the material supplied by Black and Veatch, it appeared to me that their main interest was in the propagation of engineering work. And I don't blame them. That's the business they're in. So I just couldn't find anything. There was stuff in there I didn't even understand. Some categories of the expenses we were going to have, I didn't even understand what it was. And so if I don't understand it, it's got to be a little obscure, I think. So no, I don't think the Black and Veatch report has any value whatsoever relating to our situation in Hannibal with stormwater.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Darren, did you want to talk?
We would like to let Larry Craig.
Okay, Larry, I didn't know if
Sorry, I didn't.
you were going to ask him or I should. Thank you, Larry.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for letting me come and visit with you. As the treasurer of the Concerned Citizens for Stormwater Improvement Campaign Committee, I felt it was appropriate, and a couple of our committee members are here with me. Tom Lennon and Robert are giving me moral support. But I felt it was important to come and visit with you all to kind of wrap it up, close out the campaign process, and report to you. John may find this unusual, but I find myself agreeing with some of the things he said, which is probably rare for me. First of all, the committee was formed. A little history, if I may, please. A little history was the committee was formed. The overall committee was formed back in February of 23. And at that time, 15 people occupied more tables than this around the room, along with some folks in the seating area here. And we considered, we were asked to volunteer our services. And Darren did a good job of giving us an overall view of the magnitude of the problem. Bill was here, I believe. Kelly, I don't think you had been appointed by at that time. You were appointed after that, weren't you?
Right, yes.
But anyway, we met and we were given an overview of the magnitude of the problem. And we were asked if we would be willing to serve. After that first meeting of 15 people, the next meeting we had 14 here. One decided immediately that they were not interested in being a part of it. And that's okay. But the 14 of us met several times, considering many options for funding stormwater improvement. We considered a sales tax or a tax on the total square footage of property, which immediately was determined to be far too expensive for even the average citizen. Then we considered impervious area, your rooftops, your decks, your driveways, your sidewalks. And that was less expensive, but it's still expensive. Then we considered some other options. The one we came up with, I think most of you know, was using the electric meter as a measuring device, a gauge to determine a fair share for the citizens of the residents, as well as commercial and industrial. And residents got broken down in 3 categories. Commercial, I think, was broken down into 4 categories, and industrial into 2. And we had a representative from the industrial community on our committee, served till the very end, and provided us from General Mills and provided us very good input. We had retirees, we had former plant managers, we had former general manager of the board, we had administrators, former executive director of chamber, etc., sitting on that board. So we had a very good team, and we worked together. We started out, we didn't agree a lot. We didn't get mad about it or anything, but we were just talking over various issues and what we could live with. We finally came up with that proposal that we put before the voters of using the electric meter as a measuring device, knowing that it has nothing to do with electricity, but it was a measuring device for being able to try and make the tax as fair as possible across the board. And that, when we decided on that and formed and made a decision of that group of 14, we had 2 other people that decided they had other conflicts, not conflicts with the issue, but other work-related issues that would prevent them from continuing to serve. So we ended up with 12 of the 15 serving on the campaign committee. And we continue to meet, and I think I've stated before, my estimate is from start to finish, we've invested 350 to 400 hours of those people's times, volunteer times, to try and help solve this problem. If it was our decision to make, we would have made the decision and that'd been it. But it was an issue that needed to be taken to the voters and give the voters an opportunity, the residents, to speak on the subject. And they did, to the tune of about, I don't know the exact percentage, 63% against, and the other 37% in favor of. So it went down to defeat. It was disappointing. but that's the American way. And we had public meetings. Two of you attended our public meeting at the American Legion, and actually three, if I count Darren. He didn't have a choice; he had to speak. But you attended our public meeting and showed your support, and we appreciate that. We appreciate the fact that majority of you voted in favor of putting the issue on the ballot and allowing us to take it to the city council. Because without your support for doing that, it would have never made it to the ballot. Because we were functioning kind of on your all's behalf, trying to come up with a solution. I apologize. Time to take medicine. But anyway, we held numerous meetings with various service clubs and other organizations in the community promoting the event, trying to answer people's questions and educating them and informing them. I'm very proud of the 12 people that served on the campaign committee. We met on a regular basis, generally about every 2 weeks. We raised some funds. Wasn't a lot of funds, so I think we ended up with like $2,100, $2,200. I can report to you there's nothing in the checking account, and it's been closed out. It's at zero. I have submitted a termination report to the Missouri Ethics Commission, and it's been accepted and confirmed. So that I has been dotted and T crossed. And and I've been before the city council last week. I was hoping you all would meet Monday before council meeting, and then I give my final presentation before the city council. But we want to thank you for your support. I agree with John in the fact that this issue is not going to go away. And my friends, it's not going to get any cheaper. Cost of material, the cost of labor will continue to rise. And that $3 million is going to end up being a drop in the bucket unless something is done. Now, and I'm not lecturing you, I'm encouraging you. Please take it as that. You have more than a responsibility of appointing a committee or something to look into it and approve a ballot issue to take before the city council. You have to work that city council. Did you hear what I said? You have to go to the council meeting and lecture them and talk to them. You can't, Darren can do that for you, but you're the board. You're the ones that are getting paid to meet on a monthly basis and make the critical decisions for this organization. So please don't take this as a chewing out or a lecture, but there's more that each one of you should have done and could have done and hopefully will do with your responsibilities as members of the Board of Public Works. If the council doesn't hear from you, they're going to slough it off. They've proven that already. I agree with John that the stormwater issue is a city issue. It's not a below the ground Board of Public Works issue and above the ground city issue. It's a city issue. It's it can't be measured. It doesn't produce you any profit. I also agree, he mentioned the infrastructure tax. I attended the public meeting that they've had, and I guess they'll have some more. And I would encourage you to go to that because they're talking about using funds that could be used, as John indicated, for this project. They're proposing, they're using about $400,000 a year, according to the city administrator, to repair roads, etc. But there's more than that comes in that's uncommitted right now. I find it kind of interesting that we don't have, I think it's got about another 3 years. It was approved on a 5-year renewal process. It had a sunset. So at the end of that period of time, it's got to be reconsidered by the voters. And that's your opportunity to strike. I don't know for a fact, but I've been told, and I'm not picking on Parks and Recreation, but Parks and Recreation gets a portion of the available sales tax that we use in the city of Hannibal to fund our Parks and Recreation. And we got great parks and facilities. But I also understand they're not spending, they can't spend all the money that's being brought in because our parks and recs are now in fairly decent condition. I mean, they could waste the money if they wanted to. But maybe that sales tax needs to be looked at, and it does not have a sunset. It goes forever. Maybe the voters need to reconsider it. Adjust the allocation, what goes to Parks and Rec. And then there'd be more available for stormwater and other infrastructure issues. But I agree with John that the St. Elizabeth Hospital is not infrastructure. I stood up there in front of him and said the same thing. It is not infrastructure. It's a building that's been allowed to dilapidate and deteriorate. And they want to use city infrastructure money to help tear it down. And as a citizen of Hannibal, I consider that a waste of that money. They need to find some other way of bringing that building down. It's too bad it's not burnable because our fire department could get some good training out of that. If it wasn't so much brick and concrete, I'd recommend we just burn it down. But we'd bring in every fire department within Northeast Missouri and treat it like Hannibal Grange was on fire again to make sure we don't burn down any residents' houses in the area while we're burning it down. I know I'm being ridiculous, but it's just I don't see that as good use of infrastructure money to help tear down that hospital. They think if they can use that, they can also apply for some grants and get some assistance for more money to tear it down. And maybe they can, I don't know. But I've told these city manager and the mayor that I'm for tearing it down, but not using infrastructure money. And I think there's 3 proposals: not use the infrastructure money, use the infrastructure money that's still remaining in this current cycle, or extending it for 5 years. In other words, add another 5 years on to it. I don't know how they can extend it without a vote of the people, though. I mean, if the sunset, it was voted on. It seems to me that the voters would have to approve extending that. I apologize. I've rambled on. We appreciate the support of Darren and all he's done for the committee and assisting us. We appreciate each one of you for supporting us getting it to the city council and putting it on the ballot. Please don't let it sit idle. Keep the fires burning and build them hot. Build them very hot on the city council. That something needs to be done. If they want to give it to you, I don't have a problem with you going to them and saying, we're willing to take care of the problem as soon as you provide us the money. As soon as you, the city council, provide us the money, we'll take care of the problem. If they want the board to take care of it, that's fine. As long as they provide funding for you to fund equipment resources, materials, and personnel. I'll shut up. Do you have any questions for me? Again, I personally am very appreciative of the members of our committee. We met on a regular basis. We took our responsibility seriously, and we did the best we could with what we had, and we promoted it to the bitter end. We just were not successful. Any questions? I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your efforts. Thank you all for your efforts.
Anybody else? All right. Having not heard anybody else, we'll go to the regular general manager report. It's next to the fridge. In the cabinet.
Well, I really have.
I've got two things very quickly. Number one, we have earned a safety award, the Safety Award of Excellence from the American Public Power Association. We've earned the Diamond Safety Award of Excellence from them. And what that says is that we are compared to other utilities of the same size, the same number of employees, the same number of worked hours, and the fact that we've gone another year without any work loss time from that. And so we were one of 14 winners throughout the entire nation. And again, it's narrowed to our size, and I believe there's only about 180 of the others that are about our size. But with that, we're very proud of that. One of the things that I want to add is that we work at making our safety a matter of culture. We have monthly meetings. We have tailgate meetings, something that Matt has helped us out, and Matthew, that we are taking and documenting those tailgate meetings. That has to happen before we get out and do the projects that we're doing. And so while we drive that a little bit further on the administrative side, we still have to drive it into the people's heart that this is something that they have to do. So that's thus the culture of safety that we're working for. And I always point up here that this is the first thing we do. The mission of the Hannibal Board of Public Works is to provide safe utilities. And that's both safe for our customers, but also safe for our employees, that we want them going home. And so safety, 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 we really, truly beat that drum, and we're proud of them and all of our employees for doing just that. Second of all on my list is that we have received the RP3 award, and that's the Reliable Public Power Provider Award. And we have received the Platinum designation. And what that means is there's kind of 4 areas that they really look at. One is reliability. Do we keep the lights on? And then we have comparisons. We have a lot of statistics that we follow. How long is the duration of outages? Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But have we reduced the number of outages? Have we reduced the length of time that it takes to get someone back on? Have we reduced the size of people affected? Now, there's a lot of that we can't control because of weather, but we've been aggressive on our tree trimming. We've been aggressive on making sure our system itself is very well made. We're working in the future. We're going to put in another line to finish a loop feed throughout the entirety of Hannibal, which is also going to add to that reliability. And that's going to help us again, reliability, safety, workforce development, and system improvement. That's the things that they really look at. And I will tell you, I have to absolutely take my hat off to a couple of people. Number one, Jared, who is out there working with his folks every single day, making sure that the safety is important, making sure that we're doing things right. Number two, this award, in order to do it, we had to do the reporting. And Courtney has done a fantastic job of going out and making sure and getting the information, and it's a entire utility look. So we've got HR involved, we've got IT involved, we've got operations. Matt over there is the operations, and so this truly is a group effort, and what they've done and what Courtney's done, this is just absolutely fantastic. So with that, I'm going to ask for a photo op. If Jared would come forward,
Get
and he
Courtney
can
in
present
there
that.
too.
What's that?
Get Courtney in there.
Absolutely. I think that's a great vote. That's a good thing. And then we can have the board, however you would, and John, I'm going to let you as president determine how you, here you go, Jared. How you'd like to arrange it. I am not an arranger of photography or anything like that. And then we've got Matt here who's going to give us the photo taking. How's that? All right, Maria, you got it. All right, go.
Okay.
No. I'm for it. Courtney, you better get in there.
You're dressed.
Yes.
You're dressed in black. You look fine.
You'll fit right in.
I think there's something about black today. We ought to get Bill, you know, come on.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm gonna take a bunch.
Okay.
Would you just hold it down and it takes three every second?
I gotta make sure Eric is happy.
Don't blink.
All right, that's probably.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all that I have.
That's your entire report.
That is my entire report.
Awesome, thank you very much. And moving right along to Mr. Munslinger on the operations side.
Good afternoon. This past month, we've been busy working with the contractor on the 3rd Street Viaduct project. With that project, they got cranes and they're piling drilling machines. Are getting pretty close to some of our electric lines. So Jared and his crew has been working with them on different power line shutoffs and relocations, so that project can go as smoothly as possible. One thing that we've done this year as well is with our maintenance department, we brought in some staff over the past year that had some HVAC knowledge. And so we brought the annual maintenance or the semi-annual maintenance of those products in-house as well to help us save money. On water treatment, you'll see that overall our production was lower than it has been the previous 2 years. I think we're seeing that. Paul may get into that with electricity a little bit later on, but just I think it's a product of the weather. I mean, just the change in the variation of the weather. One day it's hot, one day it's cold, and so we're not seeing what we had in previous Marches. Overall, our daily production numbers are about the same as they have been in the past. So one other item to mention, it may be partially related to our daily production, would be we didn't do our filter clean outs this year in March. They're coming up in first part of May, and so that could be offsetting some of our production. We did continue training. We sent multiple people down to the MWEA, AWWA joint annual meeting down to Lake the Ozarks, and we also had other training attended by our senior operator. We also ran the plant in manual, simulating our computer system going down or part of our programming going down. We try to do that periodically just so that people are familiar with that. If we had some glitch that prevented it from working or just for some other reason that equipment didn't work, we were still able to produce water. So we did that on March 13th. We did have one GAC change out. That would be the change out of 2 vessels occur. And then just due to getting on a schedule with the provider. We're doing another GIC change out. We've got that scheduled for June 19th. On the water distribution side, we began our annual flushing. This year, we're also doing the ISO pressure testing. This assists our fire department when they go to get their ISO classification. I believe it's once every 5th year we have to do this type of testing. And so it requires us to flush a hydrant and take a pressure at a different hydrant. So we're sending a team of 2 out to do that. And during the month of March, we did 201 hydrants. The crew also installed 480 feet of new 8-inch distribution main up along Mildred. That is a area of town where we've had multiple main breaks. They just actually recently finished up the tie over of that. And before we could get the old line shut off and capped, we had another main break on it last week. So we applaud their efforts in getting that installed, and that'll help us in our reliability of our water service moving forward. At the wastewater plant, you'll see we're still hovering around that low 3 million gallons a day average. That's a product of lack of rainfall and low river levels. We also did start up our chlorine system. We seasonally chlorinate per our MPDS permit. And so April 1 through October 31st, we're required to disinfect our effluent before we send it out to the river. On the wastewater collection side of things, one reoccurring issue that we're continually seeing is the use of, or the flushing of disposable wipes. They cause us problems. They catch on a clay tile pipe, and then they just accumulate a larger mass until it causes a stop up. In this one instance, we had a lift station that was just being inundated with them and resulted in our pumps overheating, clogging over pumps. Through working with Erica, they targeted an area with a direct mailer, and to date we've seen a reduction in it, but it's something we're continuing to monitor. And that's pretty much it as far as operations go, unless you all have any questions.
Anybody have any questions about operations for a minute? Okay, then you just move right on to projects then, please.
Up at the water plant, and including the pump house and Pleasant Street booster station, the contractor completed the installation of the metal roofing. I don't know if any of you all have seen that. They replaced a asphalt shingle roof on all those buildings, in the hopes that we don't have to touch that again for 40, 50 years. We just recently did the final inspection and have closed out that project. In your packet, you'll see a picture of those three buildings. Gravity filter replacement, again, that's our sand filters in the main building there. We've taken filter number 1 offline. They've sucked out all the media, removed the air scour system, and last week and finishing up this week, they took out the old clay tile under drains. That required people to be in there with demolition hammers, breaking out these old clay tile pieces and carrying them out. We're hoping that we get the additional parts and pieces in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, the contractor is going to have a painter in and paint that basin, and it has to have a period of cure time before it's placed back in service. And so we're estimating around 30 to 45 days turnaround. So we got this filter down now, and then we'll move through the remaining remainder of the 4 filters throughout the summer and into the fall. We're continuing to monitor our water loss, not only as it relates to different usage and stuff like that, but we're using it to build a model so that we can do predictive replacements. Also, through the monitoring that we have installed, we're able to see sometimes those leaks before they would make it to the surface. And so we're continuing to work with our contractor on that to develop that model. Downtown SSO elimination, we've got a contract signed as far as lining of all the 15-inch and smaller diameter mains down along South Main, Colfax, any of that area located outside of the floodplain or flood wall in the floodplain where they had the flood buyout after 93 and I think it was 2009. The idea there is we've got all these, 20-foot sticks of pipe or 6-foot clay tile or whatever it may be in that area, but they had all those connections to those old buildings that were there that were tore down. We don't know how they plugged that, if they plugged it when they tore those buildings down. And so when the river level gets up, the water table gets up, it's a direct connection, and we see that in our flows at our wastewater plant. And so the idea is behind the lining is you go in, you shoot a liner from one manhole to the other. You've got one piece of pipe with no connections. And so we'll do the pipe first, and then we'll come back and do the manholes at a later date. But right now, we have a kickoff meeting with them tomorrow, where we'll have a schedule. It's looking like it'll be later in summer before that project really kicks off.
That is a fiberglass liner. It ends up being like fiberglass.
It's a felt fabric that they have a resin that goes into, so it's almost like a PVC pipe when they get done. This doesn't have it's not thick enough to be considered a structural component, but it's just more of a sealing component. North Street Storm Sewer project that started out just between Bridge Street and the old bridge approach has now morphed into 3 phases. The initial phase was that initial project. We've got a contractor, or the city's got a contractor on or scheduled to start that. That is looking like it'll be first part of September before they come in and do it. They wanted to wait till the end of the summer, get all the materials in order, and do that. The second phase of the project, the city has approved an engineering contract with PSBA to go and utilize the remainder of the ARPA money. The initial project only required about $1.6 million of the $5 million that was allocated to the city. And so they're currently in design of that next phase. We're hoping to get up around that 5th Street overpass with the second phase. And then just recently, it was $3.5 million came in from the, I think it was Water Development Resource Act. I think WRDA is the acronym for it. It's an earmark that came from the federal government. It was handled by Sam Graves' office. It was approved back in 2022, but because the federal government didn't approve a budget, that money was never available until they passed this budget here a few weeks ago. And so we're learning what that process is, and we're going to help the city spend that money on the remainder portion of that Mark Twain Avenue area. Bear Creek Dam Spillway, they completed the survey work necessary for the project earlier in March, and they're now just processing that data and comparing it to the original design plans. And hopefully by next week they got some preliminary stuff that they would like for us to look at. We're continuing to work on the Indian Mounds substation replacement project. We got materials that we've had on order. We're continuing to order materials. Again, we're hoping early 2025 startup on that. And then the tie line, which Darren spoke about earlier, is between Oakwood Substation and Southside Substation down on 5th Street. And we've applied for I think it was a GRIP grant through the Department of Energy, and it'll probably be later this summer before we hear anything back on that. And so it's kind of in a holding pattern. That's all I've got, unless you all have any questions.
Now, can you give me somewhat of a visual of what that ARPA money reconstruction is, where it's going to be? Is it going to run continuing from what they did down the middle of North Street?
Yes. Right now, the only phase that we have designed and under contract is from where the Corps of Engineers stopped about Bridge Street, or that alley there, between the mud pits and the brewery. It's going to start there. It's going to continue up the street past all the houses on the north side, and then it'll turn and go up toward the old bridge approach.
That's phase 1?
That's phase 1. That's the only part we have designed and under contract. The next phase, we're thinking it's going to go in the right-hand lane as you're going west on Mark Twain Avenue. Again, that's without any survey data or preliminary design. That's just what we're thinking at this point.
So the road will be pulled up. And
Yes, that
it'll
would be
go
correct.
underneath that part of it, yeah.
Part of that is due to the city owns the westbound 2 lanes, I think the turn lane and the eastbound 2 lanes are owned by MoDOT.
Really?
I'm
Okay.
guess
That ever happened?
a pure assumption is that's what the original 2 lanes were city owned, and then when MoDOT came in and expanded it for the bridge approach, they had to acquire the additional property and
okay.
build the other two lanes plus the turning lane.
Okay.
John, man, I was gonna try and ask a question, and I think Matt just answered it. The stormwater going up Mark Twain Avenue appears to be in the right-hand lane.
No, it meanders up through an old creek bed as best I know it. Where we're talking about replacing would be in that right-hand lane.
But this has happened before, and I don't know how we prevent it. I mean, MoDOT's resurfacing that road right now, and in whatever, you're going to tear it up, and you're going to have to pay to refix it.
That is correct.
And it amazes me that we can't do a better job of coordinating with those folks, with all folks that want to do something over utilities. And if we know that they're going to do something over it, and we know maybe it needs to be fixed, we have to spend the money first, get it fixed, and then let them do their thing, rather than waste good taxpayers' money resurfacing the road.
The initial estimate to go from where the Corps of Engineers ended their project up to the old bridge approach was in the $4 to $5 million range. And so when the city secured ARPA money, they got $5 million. And then our bid, when we put the project out to bid and actually got quotes from contractors, it came in at $1.6 million. And so they didn't have, I mean, this was after MoDOT had already bid their project and planned their project. And then this additional $3.5 million that came from the WARDA. It's an addition that we never, I mean, yeah, we knew that we had it back in 2022, but it was never allocated until the past
I guess
3
what I'm
weeks.
saying, in previous administrations on the board, not current board members or leadership, way back when, I can remember City of Hannibal resurfaced the street. 3 months later, the board comes in and tears it out and replaces a water main or something like that. You know, I just see that as a total waste of money and a lack of coordination between the two organizations. And that was City of Hannibal. MoDOT's involved in this one, and they only listen to themselves a lot of times.
I will counter that with Main Street. We replaced all the water main down Main Street before it was redone.
You did.
I mean, a lot of this, we try to stay ahead of it as much as possible, but there's, I mean,
right.
water mains blow apart and no rhyme or reason, and so we try to be in front of it as best as
The more
possible.
we can learn from those things, the less it'll cost us money.
True.
And our money, your money will go with it.
True. Anybody have any other questions of Matt for the projects?
No.
No. Having heard none, thank you very much. And next up would be Paul with a financial report.
All right, we will look at some financials for March. Starting with the balance sheet, if we compare to last month, we did have a decrease on the balance sheet in every category. The main reason for that decrease, especially in cash, was our semi-annual debt service payment out of the electric fund that was due on April 1st. That was a $481,000 payment that was made for the outstanding lease. Associated with that would be the decrease in accounts payable, where that payment was sitting before it was made. Utility-wide, total assets are down just under 1% from last month and about 4.1% from a year ago. Looking at the income statement, we did have another net loss for March utility-wide of about $246,000. The primary reason was attributable to the electric fund, which had a net loss of $253,000. Revenues specifically came in $222,000 less than budgeted, which is about a 10% decrease. And what we noticed is that unit sales of electricity were the lowest in March that they've been in the last 12 years, as opposed, except for April and May of 2020, which would have been lower due to the pandemic lockdowns. So that was a significant note there. We did some digging. If you'll recall, March was extremely mild. The high for March weather-wise was 82 degrees. The low was 25. The average high for the day was 65, and the average for March was 49. So we weren't cranking much AC, weren't cranking much heat, so that was definitely a factor. And looking at usage broken out between residential, commercial, and industrial, it was definitely industrial that drove that decrease in sales. And so we compared our top 25 customers and did see a pretty substantial decrease when looking back over the last 4 years. I think a big part of it has to do, we've been preaching on it, with efficiencies. I know Jared can attest to, if you take an entire warehouse and you upgrade from conventional lighting to LED, you're going to see a pretty big impact, and we're continuing to see those conversions throughout town. And so when you have that coupled with a pretty good weather month, it does seem like a decrease in sales would be reasonable. But we are still digging just to make sure there's nothing else that we're missing. Obviously, seeing that low of a unit sales number for the last 12 years is something to note. Purchase power costs for March were about $182,000 more than budgeted. This was partially offset, though, by the decrease in expenses in electric, which came in about $68,000 less than budgeted. For water and sewer, both of them for the month of March did come in pretty close to budget, so no significant variation there. If we look back a year ago, utility-wide net income was very similar to last year. The electric fund did perform slightly better the previous year. The main difference there was kilowatt hour sales. Like I mentioned, we're down about 11% from last year. So year to date now, the net loss in the electric fund is $2.4 million. Revenues continue to be the main driver there, as they're down about $860,000 compared to budget. And net purchase power is about $460,000 over budget. Again, we've got capacity and energy that are running a little bit high for the year, but we continue to not see the MISO credits that we received back from Prairie State the year before this year. The main reason for that is just the market has been less volatile, more consistent, and so that power generated by Prairie State doesn't have as much revenue that can be generated by selling it back onto the market. In the water fund, it is now slightly behind its budgeted net income. Expenses in that fund are driving that difference. They are currently about $100,000 more than budgeted. A lot of that has to do with the timing of the carbon expense that we talk about every quarter. The sewer fund did have a second positive month in a row, but it's still about $150,000 behind its budget, and it is also seeing lower revenues when you compare it to budget. So year to date, compared to the same time frame last year, like I mentioned, net purchase power is about $900,000 more than we paid a year ago, and that offsets the increase that we've seen in revenue, which is up about $750,000 compared to a year ago. I did want to point out, if you jump down to page 22, In your report, we look at our debt service coverage ratio every month. We did have a decrease in the electric fund. It's down to a negative 2.37. We've addressed that for next fiscal year in our budget, which we'll talk about. Water and sewer also saw smaller decreases in the debt service coverage ratio, but both of those are still within the requirement of the bond covenants in those funds. Jump down a few more pages if you would, and we can look at our investment listing. I did want to point out at our investment portfolio, so when we invest our cash reserves and we look to reinvest those as they come due, we usually have 2 or 3 every month based on the ladder that we've set up. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, our portfolio was averaging somewhere around 1.25%. And as we've seen rates come back up, though it may not be as beneficial if you're looking to buy a house, it is beneficial if you're a municipality investing funds. And so we've seen that portfolio, you can see an average yield now of about 2.6%. You can look at the ones that are even rolling off this month at about 0.5%. We're able to reinvest those in about 4.5 to 5.25, depending on the maturity that we go with. So we are seeing some of that interest income start to come in and build up a little bit, which is helping. And then a couple pages, and that was on page 27. Sorry, I didn't mention that. And then a couple pages after that's our check register, which we include in there every month. That shows every single dollar that left our organization for the month of March, and we report that every month. And so you can see those payments that were made via wire transfer, manual payment, or an actual check. And then following that is the credit card statement as well for all of those charges for the month of March. Any questions on the financial report?
Anybody have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you, Paul.
Yep, thank you for addressing especially what your suspicions are about the 10% reduction in electric usage. I mean, that's pretty much. And right, now that we're getting ready to approve a budget, I'm sure one of the worries is that we want to make sure that the budget is right if there is a total downtrend, but looks like the research you did into that makes sense.
Right, and one way that we are hoping to address that in next year's budget is rather than just looking at that year's worth of data, looking at 3 years and averaging it and hopefully smoothing out some of those seasonal fluctuations that you can get year to year.
Yeah. All right. If we don't have any questions about that, Paul, you're up next for unfinished business, the proposed budget, which we all have a copy in the packet again.
Yes, you should have a physical copy there of next year's budget in front of you. Please keep in mind that as of this moment, that is a draft, so just be aware of that. We met obviously earlier this month and went into some detail over the budget. Between that meeting and today, there was only 2 changes that were made. In all 3 funds, we did adjust medical and dental benefits. The premiums that we pay on those, the Employee Benefit Trust Board did meet last week, and we are anticipating an increase in premiums that will be effective July 1st, and so we worked that into the budget. Similarly, our loggers contribution for our pension plan, the required contribution that we make into that plan decreased for next year slightly, and so we accounted for that in the budget as well. So just to summarize real quick, our company-wide net income for fiscal year 25 is budgeted at $863,000. Compare that to last year where we had a budgeted net loss of $116,000. The increase for next year is primarily due to an expected decrease in purchase power, and so the higher purchase power costs that we've been paying this year, we do hope to see a reduction next year. A lot of that's due to the stability in the electric market that we've seen recently. Revenues specifically, utility-wide are expected to decrease 306,000, excuse me. That does include rate increases in both electric and water. Like we talked about, again, the expected rate increase in electric would be about 2%, and in water, it would be about 3%. And so around $3 a month for the average residential user in electric, and around $1.50 in water. And both of those, again, would take effect in October of this year, same as last year. Talked about how we're smoothing out, hopefully, revenues with the way that we're projecting unit sales for next year by looking at 3 years of data. And then lastly, the cash reduction, the reduction that we anticipate in our cash reserves for next year is about $2.1 million. Compare that to the current year where we budgeted a cash reduction of $3.9 million. Again, the main reason for that cash reduction is our expected capital spending, which we have right now at $5.5 million, and that is also down from $6.2 million the year before. Lots of numbers at you, thrown at you, but you've got a copy of the budget again there that you've been looking at hopefully the last month or so, and everything is included in there. So I guess before we ask you to approve the fiscal year 25 budget, do we have any questions at this time?
Yeah, the medical dental premiums, of course, is a big deal. How many employees does that cover? Do we have one?
So we have,
Because we've added a few, yeah.
yeah, we've added a couple. So yeah, certainly 67, I believe, active employees, and then I'll get this wrong, 4 or 5 retirees right now. So about 72, I think, total is what we have on our plan. $71. I apologize. But we have a new employee starting Monday, so that might be 72.
Paid the 72. I'm sure he appreciates that.
All right, any other questions about the budget changes? Anything we didn't cover and need to know, Paul?
No, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, everything that we talked about at the budget workshop, nothing, no big changes. We'll have a pretty, I know we talked about this too, but we'll have some good knowledge after Friday. The capacity auction for the MISO market closes Friday, and so we should have those results based on all of our analysis and consulting advice. We have a pretty good idea, hopefully, where that's going to be, but there's we've seen a lot of volatility in that market in the last 2 or 3 years, so we will see where that ends up, but that would be some knowledge that we'll have at the end of this week.
Can you talk about all of the stormwater budgeted items? Is there any plan to carry the numbers from the grants that are going to be spent? The grants are coming to the city. Will those funds be shown as income and expenses to the contractors that are doing the parts that are being funded by grants?
You mean on our side?
Mm-hmm.
They are, so those are entirely city projects. The grants are city grants. Those, they do not touch our financials at all. We are simply we're doing the job.
We're assisting the city.
On a stormwater project,
Yes.
which the BPW has been tasked with,
Yes,
and it's not here.
correct. There's none of that grant money, none of that is coming here. Matt, sorry, go ahead.
The grant money was in there, I mean, the application was made in the city's name. They're the recipient of that money, and so all that, I mean, when they pay the contractor, it has to come out of their account as well in order to get reimbursement. The only one we would have is the Bear Creek Dam Spillway project.
Okay. It seems a little strange
Yeah,
to
that's what I was thinking.
be tasked with the project of everything under the ground, and then the city's over here doing what they said the BPW is supposed to be doing. Not that we can benefit or be hurt by it, it just seems like if we're accounting for income and expenses for the stormwater, we should be accounting for income and expenses for stormwater.
I have no response.
Okay. I'll figure out who to ask. Okay. Any other questions about the proposed budget? All right, moving right along to new business.
You need a motion to, yeah.
Oh,
Guess we ought
I
to
didn't
approve
realize
it
we were at that stage.
or not.
Yeah,
And
so we would, we're required to provide our budget to the city by May 15th. So we would need a motion to approve tonight.
all right, so do I hear a motion to approve the budget as recently modified?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Having heard none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, do we need a roll call on
Do we have
that?
to have a roll call? All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Sorry for not knowing about having to do that.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And, all right, Mr. Munslinger on surplus items.
Got before you tonight 9 items to be declared surplus. They range anything from our old meter reading equipment to old phone, old dispatch radio, old camera system. We also got some old electric motors that were associated with some equipment that we previously surplused and got rid of, and we just found the motors up on the shelf. So I just ask for your approval so that we can move through our disposal process and clear our warehouse of these items.
Motion to sell the surplus items or dispose of?
Dispose. Most of them probably not going to get anything out of.
All right, I mean, obviously you guys know what it is that we're doing. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll make it.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. And change order for filter.
Yeah, I got before you this evening, change order number 1 for the water treatment plant filter, gravity filter rehab project. When we started down this road of designing this project, the engineer worked with several different manufacturers to determine the best underdrain, or the part that sits on the very bottom that the sand and anthracite will go on top of. The supplier was under the impression we had one type of system, when in all reality we had a different type. And so the contractor bidded off the understanding that the first was correct. And then after the bid was approved, it came to light that it was not the case. And so what I got before you tonight is a change order in the amount of $45,000. It is a time and material. So we're going to work with the contractor to keep that as minimal as possible, and he'll only charge us what additional time and materials he has invested. The new process requires you to drill additional holes, provide epoxy, provide some other anchoring systems that he didn't initially include in his bid. So.
Motion to approve the change order number 1.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to figure EI approval.
Thank you. We have approved several of these in the past, and what some of them that we have approved are for NextEra, for Entergy, some of these other groups. What this is, the EEI stands for the Edison Electric Institute. It's a form which allows for a master power purchase and sale agreement. What happens is we as a distributor, we need to have energy in our portfolio, we need to have capacity in our portfolio. Those things are to be sold, and there's a market out there. What these guys, they're kind of the middleman. You have a generator, you have this middleman, and they are the ones that are supplying this market. And they go to work for us. And what we do is we say, all right, we need to go buy 5 megawatts of capacity, and we need to get it from the month of November to December. We need it for these days or however long it might be. All of these people that we have a master purchase power agreement with, they have a seat at the table to be able to go out and find and hold that capacity or energy, and then we buy it, and we buy it from them. What happens is GDS, who is our consultant, they go out and say, all right, we're going to ask 5 of you, we're going to bid for this amount on this date, and if we have a master purchase power agreement on file, these people are able to participate in that. And so it's just like going to an auction, and the more people we have at the table, the better price we're going to have, because they're going to be competing with each other. What we have here is for Trafigura. I don't know if I'm even saying that right according to them, but that's how it's spelled to me. Trafigura is another person, a group that's able to, that have consolidated, that they have contracts, that they have capacity and energy to sell. And I'm asking you to approve them to be at the table during those auctions. So that is my request. If you look at the paperwork that you have here, they're a very solid company. They've got bonding, they've got assurances in there that they will deliver what they take and bid.
Is this the same, I'm sorry, I didn't want.
Go ahead, I'm done,
The
yes.
same process when we purchased an option from New Madrid or one of the towns?
Yes,
One of those, okay.
yes, very much. Thank you, good question.
So how many other groups or organizations do we have?
We've got about 5, I believe, on it right now. One of the things that's happened in the past is it's gotten to where usually you get all 5 of them would take and respond to a request for bid or participation in that auction, and it's been going down to 3, even 2. So as we're adding, we're anxious that we add a good solid agreement in there with a master purchase agreement.
Do we have control as to the range of the bid? Like where we would stop, or the ability to, like, if it's way too high to say no?
We
or-
do.
Okay.
We absolutely do. So we go to the auction. Paul and I are usually, we're near our phone. They say that it's going to be started at 10 o'clock a.m. on day X, and it's going to be concluded at 11 o'clock. They say, all right, here's where we're at. We go out, they go out for the auction. They come back with some indicative pricing. We say, yes, we're interested. They go back to them, say, yes, they can provide it. If we say, no, it's too high, we're not going to do it, we can say no. So, yes, we have the right to do that. I would request that you approve this master purchase power and sale agreement.
Motion to approve the agreement.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Moving on, do we have any comments from the city attorney?
I have nothing.
Okay. Any general discussion? Well, I have something. I think that the way that the Stormwater Committee put together their proposal for funding is brilliant in the way that they've configured it for multifamily and businesses and things like that. It's not an onerous tax. It is a tax, though. On the last voting day, whatever that day was, St. Louis County and City approved their stormwater funding. 56 said yes and 44% said no. So I think that in addition to us going to the city council and pressing them to do it, I would like to consider doing something else. And I don't think it costs anything to get on the November ballot. But I think one of the things that was lacking was visibility, because we're dealing with underground, cities dealing with above ground, and somebody drives by a plate on the road or a couple pieces of red tape or yellow caution tape, they don't look down and see it. What I really wanted to propose was to thank you. Produce some physical hard signs that are put at all the all the underground plates that are right next to all the sidewalks. Probably to the tune of 40, 50, maybe 100 signs that kind of look like that. We talk about failure of the underground from here. And have those just be our talking points. If it were to go back on the ballot, have those signs do the talking for us. I don't know if I'm got enough going.
That's good.
So I'm suggesting that we think about another vote, put it back on the ballot, keep doing the talking that we're doing, put the signs out so that thousands of people every day will see it and be reminded of it and know where the failures are. We can talk about, oh yeah, it's in the parking lot of here, but if there's one in the police department parking lot, if there's one on Mark Twain Avenue, sidewalks on the south side, and wherever there's a failure, we've identified it as a potential stormwater project, and it's on a 5-foot pole, and it's right in everybody's face. I think that'll kind of change the idea of people who drive by it all the time. Another thing I would propose is on the BPW website under stormwater, instead of have the first landing page be a lot of words, I would suggest a lot of pictures. Failure, failure, fail, and you have to go through 4 or 5 pages of visual failures, and then you get down into the politics of here's what we're proposing, here's what the potential penalties are, things like that. I'm just proposing a new way of marketing this and potentially put it on the November ballot. There's been a lot of brouhaha about, oh, you put it on the April ballot, and nobody goes to those. And there's political scientists that have one opinion this way and one opinion that way. But if there was a perception that it was only on the April ballot to hide it from the general public, the November ballot will be influenced by the general public, and them seeing these signs thousands of times every day may sway them so that our numbers may look a little more like the St. Louis, 56 for and 44 against. Because I think the plan that was put together on how to tax it, how to manage it, how to recoup it, the fairness of it is, I think it's brilliant. Anybody else have general discussion?
I applaud your out of the box thinking, and the visual is always good. People today don't read in depth. At least that's my experience. There are some issues with that can be resolved, I think, including how to finance that kind of activity. Just as the stormwater group had some challenges there. There's a comment here.
Yes, Bob.
I don't disagree with you in total, but I feel very strongly, and I know some of the other group do also, that this might be something that's sold to the council, and the council take the lead on doing something like this. But I think the next funding move has to come directly from the council. We did not have the favor of the council in our votes. They were some of them that were against the project. And I think that squarely's got to be put. I mean, to use this as one suggestion, that the council move along this line and have them consider it. But I really think we got to get, or not, it would be my opinion that it should be coming down the next goal and sorting through all of this stuff from the council, with the board agreeing that once this gets sorted out, you know, we're on board. But the funding effort really needs to come from their direction and not accuse the board of, oh, you're just raising my rates again, and this, that, and the other thing. We got a lot of conference on that the board got a bad name over us raising the rates, because we get blamed for every other rate increase, just like we talked about this evening, a couple of rate increases. And let the council bring it out to you. I mean, it's a good idea, but let it come down from the council.
It's interesting that you say that the city council was against it. To put a fine tune on that point is one or two members of the city council was against allowing their constituents to vote.
No, only one.
Okay, one.
But we have reason to believe out of the 7 council members, 3 of them voted against.
Okay.
That should tell you something.
Well, maybe something like this would get their constituents ground swelling against their opinion.
And
But it's a real
I
good.
don't have solid facts, Bree.
Mhm.
I know that 2 for sure.
Yeah.
I was told a third.
Mhm.
One of the things I've already heard from several people is the little pothole out front of City Hall. They're already accusing the board of planning this public notice or whatever, that they're gonna put these things, and they're already thinking it's a negative thing, whether it's fact or not, but that's already caught quite a few people. So they think that's a storm sewer that's fell in.
What is it?
It's just a little divot.
Well, and,
Do you know anything about it, Matt?
No, there's no pipes known under there. I mean, there could be something.
that just shows you
Historically,
the
And
public conception.
Yeah.
to illustrate the point, I made the suggestion that before the city council last week, and what I think should happen to get citizens' attention. When the street collapses because of stormwater, we don't put a plate over it. We close the street. And they have to drive around it. And if they have to start driving around enough streets that collapse because of poorly maintained, and not because you are poorly maintained, but we don't have the funds. Maybe they'll get the idea how bad the situation is. Darren's got, 40, 50 pictures of failures. Things that are already failing and getting worse. I don't know how we produce all those pictures. Putting them on the website is one way.
I know I had.
Producing a booklet that gets sent out to the citizens. This is currently your stormwater system. How bad do you want it to get?
Mhm.
I had some people reach out to me about it after the vote. They thought we were asking for too much money from the start, that maybe a smaller amount. And also how it was the electric meter. They just couldn't comprehend how those two things went
We
in.
understand that.
Yeah.
Kelly, it was just a measuring device. It had nothing to do with electricity. And we told them that at the meetings. They kept asking, why are you using the meter? Well, we need to have some kind of a measuring device to try and determine a fair allocation among the residents, the commercial and the industrial.
And I also saw somewhere that there's a perception that we now have a grant to fund it. And there's this perception that we,
Yeah. No, the North Street project.
yeah, that now it's,
Well, you
there's
got that
now
three-
this
you got
grant.
that 3.5 million, go get some more.
Right.
Like it grows on trees.
Yeah, and that now there is a grant, and so we were just trying to get money from the people. I mean, it's kind of silly, really, but.
Problem that everybody I talk to, how do we educate the people? We tried social media and stuff, and it didn't really get, other than John and Lou Barta, the only two people, and then a couple more of them, the only people that really responded. We didn't get the impact that we thought we would. So how do we get the word out? I think that is our problem, is how do we educate the community?
Because you
They
had
don't read
meetings, but they didn't
newspapers.
come.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that meeting at the Legion, there wasn't a big
There was
turnout.
40 people there.
Yeah, and most of that were people that were for it, you know.
Yeah, right. So the thing is, how do we educate the community? And that's what we really need to figure out, I think, is how do we do that? Of course, the meter thing was negative. That people couldn't understand that concept. But when we went to the civic clubs and explained it, talked about it, we really had very few negative comments.
But I totally agree with Bob. And I would encourage, as you're not elected, you're appointed by the city council. I mean, you get nominated and approved. But for the city council, you're their voice, the Board of Public Works. You need to attend meetings and start breaking them over the toes. Politely, but saying, you know, you've got responsibility. You're elected to lead this city. They are, not you. They are. You're appointed to manage the resources of the Board of Public Works. So the monkey is really on the city council's back, and that's where it needs to be placed, and it needs to be emphasized.
I saw the recording of the meeting. I didn't go to it, but I watched the YouTube video, and it was really well done, your talk about that. And you hammered it home exactly like you're talking right now. And somebody's got to figure out where to get the money from, and like you said, we're not money finders, we're money spenders.
The bottom line is, from my perspective, and I assume from Bob and Bob, we appreciate the support you gave us to put the issue on the ballot. Without that, we didn't have a job to do. We tried to do the best we could with the resources we had and the time available and the willingness of the people to listen. And I tell you what, the other thing was, Tom mentioned the,
Oh, okay, she ran up here.
it's just the fact that the first time you all tried to do this, without a campaign committee, you were pushing for, I think, 1 or 1.5 million, and failed by 12 votes. So I guess I'm not opposed to lesser money. I mean, we paid good money to have Black and Beach do the research, and they estimated we needed $4 million a year. And we thought that was too much, so we took it down to 3.5. Maybe it needs to go to 2 or 2.5, and maybe they'll accept it. I don't know, but you got to have some kind of money to start with to get grants and other type of state and federal money to fix this problem.
Well, I just want to thank you and your committee and everybody else that participated. And like you said, you put hundreds of hours into it, and the effort, frankly, enjoyed getting to know you and becoming your friend. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right, appreciate your help. So if we're done with the general meeting stuff, maybe we need to go into closed session for,
Pursuant to section 610.02112 of the Missouri Sunshine Law, the meeting shall convene in closed session to discuss contracts. Board members Darren, Matt, Paul, Courtney, and Ethan shall attend.
that's a motion. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.